Night rolls in over Camp Hartswell, a sprawling West Coast U.S. military installation carved between cedar forests and long concrete roads. The air hums with generators, distant cadence calls, and the metallic heartbeat of an American base preparing for another training cycle. But tonight, the base hides more than routine. Tonight, a story of silence, scars, and moral courage is about to be carved into its walls. And at the center of it is Chief Warrant Officer Mara Hale, a woman whose name almost no one on the base knows, and whose past almost no one would believe. She has been a ghost, an advisor brought in by the Pentagon under sealed orders. 20 years in the Navy SEALs, most of them in black budget units that technically don't exist. Her records? A single paragraph summary. Her scars? A map no one here has seen. Her presence? Quiet, unassuming, almost invisible. And that invisibility is what nearly gets her killed. When Hale steps off the transport bus, her duffel slung over one shoulder, she looks like any mid-career NCO transferred in from a desk position. She is compact, lean, with a face that carries storms behind calm eyes. To most soldiers, she is forgettable. Perfect. She prefers it that way. Her assignment, evaluate readiness, audit leadership behavior, and observe morale issues reported anonymously to the Inspector General. Nothing flashy, nothing you put on a poster. Officially, she is a training consultant. Unofficially, she is a human lie detector. For the first week, she blends in, quietly moving through PT grounds, sitting in on briefings, watching drill instructors, talking to no one unless necessary. But at night, in the dim of the barracks hallway, she hears things, whispers, laughter that doesn't belong, a pattern of bullying that senior staff claims doesn't exist. When Hale walks by, the soldiers straighten, but not out of respect, out of sizing her up, evaluating, judging, whispering. Another soft transfer, one mutters. Nah, civilian contract type, another says. Probably never deployed. But she ignores it. She's had men underestimate her since Bude S. Since the day she walked into the grinder and 70 males wrote her off before the first wave hit her face. She has nothing to prove, but others will try to prove something to her. It's late, 2100 hours, when Hale heads into the women's changing room after a long day observing night drills. The room is dim, lit only by flickering fluorescents. Metal lockers form a cramped maze. The scent of detergent and damp uniforms hangs heavy. She hears voices before she even rounds the corner. 3 soldiers, Private Monroe, Private Ellis, and Specialist Vance, linger inside. Their gear is already off. They weren't supposed to be here anymore. Their shift ended hours ago. They fall silent when they see her. Then one snorts. "Oh, great," Vance mutters loudly. "The ghost lady. Thought she left already," Monroe adds. Hale doesn't look at them. She sets her duffel down, unzips it, pulls out her towel. She keeps her breathing slow, controlled. The same kind she learned on a cold night in Kandahar when an ambush pinned her team under rubble for 9 hours. But the soldiers step closer, not because they're curious, because they smell blood, or what they think is weakness. "Hey," Ellis says, circling behind her. "We're talking to you." She doesn't answer. She doesn't need to. "What? You think you're too good to speak?" Monroe laughs. "Fuck off." "Yeah," Vance adds. "Fuck off and get your own damn time slot." They surround her. 3 men, broad, young, each one running off arrogance and unchecked ego. Hale turns slowly, calm, still holding her towel. Her eyes lock onto Vance's. "Step aside," she says softly. But softness isn't what they respect. Instead, Monroe grabs her shoulder, and that is the point where everything changes. Hale feels the hand clamp around the side of her throat, then another hand around the back of her neck. Ellis shoves her against the lockers. The metal slams. Echoes. "Let go," Hale says, voice still controlled. "Or what?" Monroe laughs, inches from her face. "You gonna file a report? Get us in trouble?" He squeezes harder. "Fuck off!" he hisses again. Another hand grips her arm, twisting, trying to pin her. Vance steps behind her, reaching for her waist as if to restrain her completely. They are not trying to kill her, but they are trying to dominate her, crush her, assert power. They think she's no one. They think she's harmless. They think she's alone. They think she's a woman who will just take it. They think exactly what Mara Hale needs them to think. She exhales slowly through her nose. Her pulse slows, time stretches. And then she moves. Not with rage, not with panic, but with the cold, surgical precision of someone who spent 2 decades ending fights before they began. Her right hand snaps up, palm strike to Monroe's throat. Not enough to collapse anything, just enough to shock him. Monroe stumbles back, gasping. She pivots, dropping her weight, grabbing Ellis's wrist, twisting. A joint lock. Training muscle memory. Ellis screams. Crumples. Vance lunges. Hale doesn't even look at him. She simply pivots, drops low, sweeps his legs out, and he hits the ground with a crash that echoes through the stainless steel room. 8 seconds. That's all it takes. 3 soldiers on the floor, Hale standing above them, breathing steady, eyes steady, dead quiet. Then, the door slams open. Sergeant Major Dalton storms in, drawn by the crash. What the hell? He freezes. 3 soldiers down, a changing room in chaos, and Hale, standing perfectly calm. Dalton looks at her with instant accusation. What did you do? Hale doesn't answer. Not yet, because Monroe, gasping, coughing, points a trembling finger at her. She attacked us. She started it. She jumped us. Dalton, who has already been the subject of multiple anonymous complaints Hale is here to investigate, narrows his eyes. Perfect, he thinks. A troublemaker consultant he can discredit. Chief Warrant Hale, he growls. You're coming with me. But another voice cuts through the doorway. Strong, authoritative, female. No, she's coming with me. The room turns as Colonel Lydia Brandt, base commander, steps inside. Her eyes sweep the scene, then land on Hale. Recognition flashes, not of rank, but of history. Brandt knows exactly who Hale is. She requested her. Dalton stiffens. Ma'am, she assaulted... Brandt raises a hand. Sergeant Major. If Chief Hale assaulted trained male soldiers, there must be footage. Isn't that right? Dalton freezes. Because there is footage. Every hallway, every entrance, every locker room corner. But he doesn't want it pulled. He knows what it will show. Hale doesn't even blink. Her voice is quiet even. Pull the security feed. And with that, the tide shifts. Inside the command center, the footage plays. First, silence. Then the soldiers harassing Hale. Then the choke, the shove, the escalation, the intent, the abuse of power. Dalton's face drains of color. Brandt stands with arms crossed. And Hale? She watches stone-faced, not for vindication, but to make sure every detail is recorded clearly. When the footage ends, Brandt turns to Dalton. Explain to me, she says coldly, how 3 male soldiers attempted to choke and assault a senior warrant officer under your supervision. Dalton's jaw locks tight. He knows he is done. Monroe, Ellis, and Vance are silent, terrified, defeated, realizing the depth of what they've done. But Brandt isn't finished. She turns to Hale. Chief, do you want to press charges? The room holds its breath, and Hale shakes her head. No, ma'am. The colonel raises an eyebrow. May I ask why? Hale finally looks at the soldiers. Her voice is soft, but sharp as steel wire. Because consequences are coming either way. They don't need my signature to learn what accountability feels like. Brandt nods, understanding the deeper layer. Administrative action, reassignment, investigations. Their careers won't survive this, but Hale, she doesn't need revenge. She needs culture to change. She needs the system to work the way it should have worked before she ever arrived. Brandt dismisses the soldiers and Dalton with orders for immediate confinement pending inquiry. And when the room empties, she turns to Hale. You handled that with restraint, Brandt says quietly. Most people would have snapped. Hale exhales. I've seen worse, she murmurs. Much worse. The colonel studies her. How long were you in? Hale pauses, then answers simply, 20 years. Brandt nods, eyes softening with respect. I thought as much. The next morning, word spreads through the base like wildfire. Not the assault, not the arrests, but the truth. The quiet, unassuming consultant was a decorated Navy SEAL with 2 decades of service, a woman who operated in teams that barely existed on paper. Rumors swirl, speculation rises, but Hale keeps her routine, quiet, disciplined, focused. She runs PT with the unit. She observes training. She speaks with junior soldiers with more empathy than they've ever seen from leadership. And slowly, subtly, something changes. The culture shifts because fear does not create respect. But witnessing courage, that does. Watching someone stand calm in the face of abuse, that does. Seeing a woman who survived the world's harshest training walk among them without ego, without medals, without needing anyone's approval, that does. Soon, younger soldiers begin seeking Hale out, not for stories, not for gossip, but for guidance, for discipline, for strength, for how to survive a system that can both uplift and crush. And Hale gives it, quietly, patiently, with the same restraint she used in that locker room. She does not tell war stories. She does not brag. She simply teaches them how to stand, and slowly, a broken base begins to mend. On her final day at Camp Hartswell, Hale stands by the helicopter pad, watching the rotors start to spin. Colonel Brandt approaches. "You made a bigger impact here in 3 weeks than some leaders make in 20 years, Brandt says. Hale shakes her head gently. "I didn't do anything special." Brandt smiles faintly. "That's exactly why it was special." Hale adjusts her bag. "Thank you," she says softly, "for believing me from the start." Brandt nods once, firmly. "People like you," she says, "remind this uniform what it's supposed to stand for." Hale looks out at the base, the barracks, the parade field, the soldiers marching in early fog. She sees pain, growth, transformation, and potential. A legacy not of violence, but of quiet strength. "You know," Brandt says, "those soldiers asked why you didn't press charges." Hale turns. "And what did you tell them?" Brandt's voice lowers. "That you spent 20 years giving people second chances, and that you understood sometimes broken men can still be rebuilt." Hale breathes in, slow, steady, steadying. Then she steps toward the helicopter. "Sometimes," she murmurs, "but not always." The colonel nods. "Not always." The wind from the rotors sweeps across the concrete. Hale climbs aboard. The helicopter lifts. Camp Hartswell grows smaller beneath her, but her impact doesn't, because sometimes the bravest thing a warrior can do is not to fight, but to endure, to stand, to speak, to show others how to rise after witnessing wrong and choosing to do right. And that is the legacy Mara Hale leaves behind. True courage isn't in battle, but in standing for what's right, even when you stand alone.